Which one do I look like out of all these? I was going to put my hair down in the form of a mop top, but it's not long enough. So, this is an iconic cover. I really love it. Simple, basically, right? A red border with the Beatles faces in black and white from here, showcasing the classic mop tops that they had back in 1964. Well, anyway, folks, this is part of my series, you might call it, on the 50th anniversary United States albums, the day they came out. It was 50 years ago today. That's June 26th, 1964, that this album came out from United Artists to go along with the movie A Hard Day's Night, their first feature film. And needless to say, for me anyway, I think this is a great album. And, you know, it's very difficult to, when you go through these albums, finding anything new to say about them. That's why I don't really fancy the idea of doing Beatle discussions or Beatle reviews of albums, because I really have nothing but glowing things to say about them. Almost all their songs I like, so there's not really much I can do as far as trying to critically analyze them. I can say some songs I maybe like better than others, or like least compared to others. But I just love looking at this cover. The back cover here had more photos. Now, unlike the UK album, the UK version of this, which is now the standard one really that everybody kind of knows and goes with on CD and so on, the England album had all Beatles compositions. It was the first one to have only Beatles material. There were no cover versions on it. Okay, now this album's different in the sense that it has some instrumentals to go along with the movie. Now, some of them appear in the movie and some of them don't. But I actually enjoy the instrumentals. I think a lot of times this album in the US gets kind of a bad rap, and that's probably because a lot of people don't like listening to a record where you have to have some Beatles vocals and then some instrumentals. The instrumentals were done by George Martin, and the Beatles producer. He's a musical director, it says here, George Martin. And I enjoy them. I think as a movie soundtrack, if you take this as the background to the actual motion picture and don't look at it just as a Beatles album, new Beatles release, just of all Beatles originals, it's enjoyable. Because I'm a movie fan, and in addition to music, so I have a good time with movie soundtracks. So, exploring the contents of the album, which I have in this sticky flap version of the outer sleeve. United Artists. That's the inner sleeve, original one. Enjoy these current best-selling United Artists albums. The back has an advertisement for some other United Artists performers. Well, or general stuff. Folk music, I should say, jazz, instrumental, soundtrack recordings. What I like about this label on the record, I've always liked, we're so used to the Capitol label with the rainbow, but I've always loved this United Artists label. I remember as a kid looking at one of the adults in my family had all the albums, and really loved looking at this one with the color dots on the top, different from your standard Capitol releases. So, what can I say about the music on here? Well, let's get to that. To start with, we go with the song A Hard Day's Night, title track, opening tune. Now, what do you say about a classic that's #1 and one of the Beatles' greatest songs? Nothing. So, you know what? I think I'm done with this review. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody. No, there's nothing really I can say about it. I love this song, A Hard Day's Night. It opens up the album with that famous chord that you recognize the song immediately from. And it's a great vocals by John mostly. And little I could say. Second song, Tell Me Why. Now, I can say something a little different about that. Tell Me Why is a song that I really like. A lot of people just shove that one under the carpet, oh, it's just another one of the Beatles, I don't know, filler songs, people say. They don't think it's one of their better songs. When you've liked the Beatles as much as I have, I get to the point after a while where I kind of go off the popular songs, yeah, sure, the #1 hits, A Hard Day's Night and so on, and other big ones, I Want to Hold Your Hand, She Loves You, the early Beatles stuff. Yeah, that's all great. But, you know, even I can kind of overdose on those a little bit. And these days I find that I prefer the songs that are a little more obscure, or as obscure as the Beatles can be, because they're so popular. And Tell Me Why is one of them. I really love the song. It's one of my favorites on the album. Now, the third one is I'll Cry Instead, although I don't know if I can get a close shot of this. I'll try it. It says I Cry Instead on it, which the third track, which is not really proper. It's a mistake. I'll Cry Instead. What's interesting about it on this album is that it has another verse that's not included on the original UK album. So you have to really, or at least back in the day, you had to get the United States version of this in order to really have the song complete. And I think even repeating the verse over and having it, the first verse John sings twice on this version, I just think it's better that way. I like the longer version. I like it with the singing the opening verse twice. And it's interesting that it was never included like that, really, originally in England. I don't know why. You'd have to get this album or the US single back in the day in order to get the longer version. But I'll Cry Instead, you know, it's not one of my favorite Beatles songs, but I like it. I mean, you got John, again, an early version of him talking about having problems, a chip on his shoulder, you know, and he's going to break all the girls' hearts, you know, and he's kind of pissed off. So I really think that having John mad and writing something like that in '64, probably one of his earliest examples of that. Another song that's not on this album is You Can't Do That, which, you know, not to get off track here too much, but, you know, You Can't Do That from, not on this album, but on the United States, excuse me, on the United Kingdom version of it. You get another example of John getting a little more harder ass, you know. But anyway, I'm getting off track of this album. Fourth one here is I Should Have Known Better instrumental version. Okay, now, that's a George Martin track. And I don't believe it's in the movie, this version of instrumental of I Should Have Known Better. I like it. It's pleasant enough. I like all the instrumentals on the album, really. It's a nice break. You get 3 original Beatle vocals, and then you go to an instrumental of I Should Have Known Better. It's nice. It's a zippy little number. Got a lot of energy. It's faster than the vocal version. So it's kind of fun. Then we go to I'm Happy Just to Dance With You, which is a song that George Harrison sang, and it was written for George. George didn't write it, which I always thought was interesting. At this particular time, George had already started writing Don't Bother Me. You would think that he would have tried to write a song for the album or for the new movie, but anyway, I love I'm Happy Just to Dance With You. Short and sweet. Nothing really I could say about it. Another song I like. Now, the last track on side 1 is another instrumental version of And I Love Her. It's rather long, and when I say long, I mean 3 minutes and 42 seconds, which is long for this period of the Beatles stuff. It's a very slow, moody, mellow version of And I Love Her. Slower, I believe, than the original vocal by the Beatles. And again, that doesn't figure in the movie, to the best of my knowledge. And I Love Her instrumental, and just like I Should Have Known Better, neither one feature in the film. But they sound good on the album, and they're placed in such ways that I don't believe they overstay their welcome. Like I say, getting 3 Beatle vocals, then an instrumental, 1 more Beatle vocal, and then another instrumental to close out side 1, makes it easy listening. All right, we go to side 2. Side 2 kicks off with the vocal version of I Should Have Known Better. Great Beatles song. It was released as the B-side single to A Hard Day's Night. Great lead vocal from John. Great harmonica by John. Just a really good track. Then we go to the second track, If I Fell. If I Fell is a nice ballad. Sung by John mostly, but John and Paul together, really. And John wrote it, and I gotta say, I enjoy. Of course, I like it. I think it's a great Beatles song. But I like the next song, And I Love Her, better. If I had to pick between If I Fell or And I Love Her, I'll side with Paul McCartney on this one with his song, And I Love Her. If I was going to, just to have something different to talk about, you know, to try to break it up a little bit, I would prefer And I Love Her. I think it's beautiful. And George's guitar is great. And, you know, it's funny. Recently, there's a documentary that was out about George Harrison living in the material world. And on that documentary, for the first time, we heard Paul McCartney admit that the guitar part that is its signature, you know, dun 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 dun, that part, that's actually George. He actually came up with that, and I never heard Paul up until that recent documentary interview admit that, which I thought was really cool of him to do that. So I love And I Love Her. Okay, so the only thing I would say is maybe they could have changed the sequencing a little bit, because you get the two slow ballads one after the other. Maybe they should have put If I Fell on side 1 and I Love Her on side 2 and split them up a little bit, but that's a minor quibble. Then we got, after 3 vocals, we go to an instrumental, and this is my favorite instrumental track on the album. It's a song called Ringo's Theme, and it goes to the tune of This Boy, really. And anybody who's seen A Hard Day's Night, the movie, knows it's put to really good use during a scene when Ringo is going out exploring or adventuring on his own. He breaks off from the band, meets up with a young kid, and they start talking and goofing off, or whatever you want to call it. Well, really, that's so much goofing, I guess. And of course, during that scene, Ringo had said that he actually had a hangover. He had been out drinking and partying the night before, so he did that whole scene kind of, you know, strung out looking. And, you know, when you watch the movie, you can see it. If you know, when he's walking along the bank with the kid, talking with him about life and whatnot. And I think that actually benefits the scene. It's one of my favorite scenes in the entire movie. And the instrumental Ringo's Theme, Peace and Love, it goes really well, you know, for the scene in the movie, this song. Okay, then we go to another hit. The 5th track, Can't Buy Me Love. Anybody ever hear that song before? I hear it's pretty good. Well, what can I say? Great song, classic, great McCartney vocal. You know, I mean, I can't offer anything else to it. I love it, you know. And then we close the album with an instrumental version of A Hard Day's Night. And it features in the movie. There's a scene where Paul's grandfather is trying to evade the police, and he's running away from the police. And it's Wilfrid Bramble who plays Paul's grandfather in the movie. And it's really a nice action track. You know, it goes well in the movie, and it's a good way to close the album. I mean, you know, again, I'm sorry, folks. I mean, I'm just basically doing these kind of, I don't know, discussions and acknowledgments because of the 50th anniversary. I mean, there's nothing really that I can say. I mean, I hope I offered something here. Basically, this video is just to say, you know, happy anniversary to the Hard Day's Night album. Look at that. I can't get enough of looking at that cover. I really love it. And it's a great record that all Beatle fans should own. Thanks a lot for watching.